the economic host has grown so rapidly that it's been kind of hard to see the parasite. That we've had so much economic growth that it's okay to inflate the currency and debase and tax and all of these things.
Exactly.
It's less noticeable.
Hmm. Hmm. And
Um,
here we are thinking, oh, it's because of democracy. It's like,
right,
no,
right, right.
like
You think the
literally, it's in
parasite is
spite
the
of.
yes, and exactly, and it is
Democracy is just the least aggressive parasite.
right.
Marxism killed the host. Democracy is allowed it to kind of
Yes,
keep
that's
flourishing a
exactly the
little
point
bit.
they make in the sovereign individual. It's just these are just different modes of statism. They're both stealing from you. One just stole faster, basically. And it has been this struggle from the beginning, like since time immemorial, that we've been looking for ways to even pretend ourselves into a reality where we have property. Like you can just keep the fruits of your labor. And I think stronger property leads to stronger civilization. I think we've seen that. We see that in the U.S. That's been the success here. The economic success was strong property, fair rule of law, low and predictable taxes. The U.S. created the most wealth in the world. We've had some of the most innovation in the U.S. as well, FANG stocks and all that. That's all an inheritance from that tradition of strong property. And I like that you brought up the Cain and Abel thing too, because that's what it was making me think of. I wrote this down that again, it's moral, but it's pragmatic. When I think of what someone like Christ is saying, love thy neighbor, speak the truth, be fruitful and multiply. Like all of that is basically property, right? Like just respect each other, love one another, don't take from one another, be honest, and participate in the marketplace, don't deceive, don't lie, don't steal. And then you're multiplicative. You can be fruitful and multiply. Um, so this is really powerful, just across a lot of dimensions, and it's so simple. I feel like it's something that people can really get their heads around, um, and also points to kind of the purpose of government, right? The reason we put government in place, ostensibly, is to prevent the taking. But
Hmm.
then when you put all that power in a human institution, it inevitably starts engaging in the taking itself.
Hmm. Hmm.
So,
I want to throw one quick question up to you guys, and this is something I've grappled with, and I'm sure you guys have grappled with, is the idea of property rights and what demarcates property, and how one protects that property. It's like, because we understand that strong property rights equals strong civilization, strong individuals, etc. But like, what are the methods of, or how do we ensure strong property rights? Like, curious to hear your thoughts on this.
Well, something to that question, something I was thinking about when Rob was talking was just thinking through Frederick Bastiat's book, The Law, and he says in regards to the state, like there is no state, right? So like it starts with me as an individual, and I have my private property, and I should only be able to use force against somebody else to protect my private property. But then if I got one of you guys or both of you guys to help me protect my property, then you would help me protect my property. And so then the state is only a collection of the people and should only have an extension of our own personal rights or abilities to protect our private property. So then the state should only be enforcing private property rights and shouldn't be using force for any other means. Um, as far as how you would enforce those private property rights, I mean, I guess it depends on what type of attack that you're facing. Is that what your question is? How?
Well, it's tricky. So what if I come and say that that was my property? And I know libertarians have kind of like talked through this. It's like, when I just want to throw the question up there. It's like, what's the line of force? And maybe this is an unanswerable question, because it's like it's kind of so complicated that it comes down to a situation by situation case. But I'm trying to kind of like steelman the opposite argument, or at least strawman the opposite argument. It's like, well, what do you mean by property, and how do you defend it? And what is it right? So, Rob, curious on your thoughts there.
yeah, this word, it kind of plagues me in a way because I think
Mm-hmm.
property
Mm-hmm.
is so fundamental to civilization, yet it's so widely misunderstood. Yet I don't have another good word for it. It's like it's the relationship of owner and asset, right? It's the the bond between man and nature, something like that. We imprint our ideas into the world, right? You extend your self-ownership into the world and own things, but it only works if other people buy into that mode of being, let's say. So I don't know. I don't know how to answer your question, but I would just say, again, the purpose of government is to preserve property. But there's this weird situation where that monopoly on violence tends to end up preying on property itself. It always has via taxation and inflation. So it's like, how do we hold that institution accountable? How do we have a check on the state? And I think the way the U.S. was founded was an attempt at that, right? We had checks and balances, somewhat of a decentralization of that power, such that it would be less corruptible, presumably. But in a world with Bitcoin, it gets much more interesting because you can just, if your government's treating you badly in any way, taxation, inflation, oppression, you can vote with your feet, so to speak, take your capital out of the jurisdiction and move. And so that, I think, is a really potent check on the excessive growth of the state. And in that world, you would expect the governments to be much more accountable to the preferences of their customers, which are citizens. And what do citizens want? They just want peace and strong property, right? You just want to know that you can go to work, make some money, make investments, and that you're not going to get scammed or robbed. Like, that would be nice. So I don't know where it goes, but it seems like, fix the money, fix the world kind of thing. If you just have honest money, it at least holds governments accountable. And that's why I'm so ardent about the sovereign individual thesis. I think that makes a ton of sense. When you have this ultimate check on the state, humans will just self-organize into smaller groups, I think. Mm-hmm. So, but who knows, right? That's crazy. What are we saying, like digital monarchy or something like that?
Well, yeah, this is something as you said, it like plagues me and question it. And the thing is, like, as much as I try and find other alternatives or solutions or whatever, like every single fucking time I just like end up back at Bitcoin again. I'm like, okay, well, it's just not gonna work unless you have something like Bitcoin, like that sort of like keystone, or the pin, the key, whatever the fuck you want to call it. It's just, anyway, I was just curious to throw that out there because I don't know of a better component that, as you said, transforms, like it just changes the paradigm. And I don't think any of us really know what the future paradigm looks like. I mean, as you said, digital monarchy of some sort, like a corporate territories. But once again, that is what's that process called where you kind of project a prior technology onto a future use? I think it's skeuomorphism or whatever. So we're all kind of like projecting what we have tried to understand forward. So anyway, fascinating shit. But I'll leave that brain fart there and let you continue.
No, that was cool. That was a cool tangent. And the last thing I would say about that is I loved, again, that you open with making and taking, goes straight into property, which is the purpose of government. I feel like this just rips the mask off government in a way. Mm-hmm. It's like, that's all you want it to do. You don't want it to do anything else except life, liberty, property, which you can really compress into property ultimately. Mm-hmm. Ownership of yourself, ownership of the things you create, justly acquire, etc. And that's what we need, I guess, to undeify the state. The people think government is that's the only thing that solves problems in the world, that you vote yourself money or solutions, and it's just absolute nonsense. So great way to open the book, guys. Good job.